they're so just like, oh my God, can we do that? Should we do that? What's it gonna be like? What's up, everyone? Hope you've had a good week. If you want to get caught up on some of the things I posted recently, head over to the channel and check those things out. I've posted some things recently talking about some polls that I've ran. So if you want to get caught up on those, head over to the channel. And if you're new, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video today. A very interesting article coming from Variety today that I want to discuss, or potential rumor, take it with a grain of salt, of course. No hard confirmation from either Zack or the studio. And so, that'll make sense in a moment when I get into the topic. But some of you may have seen this. Variety is reporting that Warner Brothers is supposedly wanting to do a 300 prequel series with Zack Snyder set to direct. Of course, 300 is one of his many iconic films, and there's so many iconic things about that movie that have since to this day remained instantly recognizable, iconic, quotable. It truly was something so special, especially for the time that it came out, because of this, the green screen and how they made it look and just everything about it. But let's see what this article has to say. Variety is reporting that a 300 TV series adaptation is in early development at Warner Brothers Television, what they have learned from some sources. Exact plot details are still being worked out, but sources say that the show would serve as a prequel to the 2006 film. No writer or platform is currently attached to the project. I'll go back to that in a moment. Deals are still being negotiated, but Zack Snyder, who directed and co-wrote 300, is in talks to direct and executive produce the series. Deborah Snyder, of course his wife, who executive produced 300, would also return as an executive producer under her and Zack's Stone Quarry production banner, with Stone Quarry's Wesley Collier also on board. Gianni Nunari, Mark Canton, and Bernie Goldman, all of whom were producers on the film, are likewise in talks to return. So let me go back to something really quick. First thing I noticed that stuck out to me was it says no writer or platform is currently attached to the project. Now that stood out to me because not too long ago, Zack shared that he earned back the rights of 300. Actually, a movie that he was going to do after 300, which he now calls Blood and Ashes, which would have focused on Alexander the Great and a love affair that he had. But Zack now has the rights to that. That's why that kind of stood out to me, because if they go ahead with this and it happens, doesn't mean that it would have to be on on Max or something like that. As we have seen now since this merger happened and there's been a change in leadership, there have been Warner Brothers projects that have been shopped out, so to speak, to other streaming services, platforms, Amazon Prime, Netflix, things like that. So it doesn't mean that they would necessarily have to be on Max or something like that. It gives a brief overview of the synopsis of the film in the article and, how it performed theatrically. And I've also mentioned, how it's made this iconic stamp on entertainment, and not just entertainment, but I think just things in general. For instance, there's a high school right by my house that has Spartans as their mascot, and I shared this on my TikTok and on Twitter quite a while back. Outside of the school, they have these big banners that have the 300 thing on them, and it says this is Sparta and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure any school that has Spartans as their mascot does something related to 300. Like I said, it's iconic. There was a follow-up film though, 300 Rise of an Empire, that came out in 2014, which was also based on another Frank Miller graphic novel, Xerxes. However, Zack did not direct that one. He just was a co-writer on it. I was not as fond of that one, and also it mentions in the article that it still was not as quite well received as the original, the first film. Still did pretty decent in theaters, but so really not a whole lot of things to discuss as far as what the article is reporting, but just the fact that it could be happening, I think, is noteworthy in and of itself, because I think that'd be a pretty big deal. First of all, I think it'd be a huge deal for Zack to return to Warner Brothers for any reason at all, whether it's DC related, 300. It would be insane. I just think that'd be pretty crazy for him to return to not in a bad way. I think it's even more surprising for him to return to Warner Brothers for something that's not DC related. You know what I mean? Because that's what he did over the past, that's what he was there for so long, dedicating so much years to DC things while he was there. And so it'd be pretty, I think it's even more shocking if this happens, to be honest. Not the series itself, but just the fact that if he goes back to Warner Brothers for something unrelated to DC, I think that's pretty shocking. I also think it's pretty ironic. It just has been a pattern over Zack's career that like he makes these movies and the studios are so, we find out later how the studios were just so like, what is that? What are you talking about? What's that going to be? They're so just like, oh my God, can we do that? Should we do that? What's it going to be? Like, they're so like, ugh. And then the movie comes out and everyone's like mind blown by his stuff, except for, haters, but there's always going to be that. But fans of his work are people that are like, wow, what is that? Become a new fan, are just captivated by it. And then it goes through this years like long, and then they always become movies that people talk about for years. That's been that way with 300, Watchmen, his DC trilogy for sure. He's talked about so many times how about 300, how when they were shopping it, around Hollywood trying to get different studios to pick it up, they just weren't getting it. You know what I mean? And like they weren't getting they weren't picking up what he was putting down. And it's like, he's trying to explain to them this graphic novel, like that's what it's going to look like. And finally Warner Brothers let him do a test scene and he kind of gave them an idea of how it was going to be. And they had just did Troy. And so they were like, we don't need to do another, movie like that. And it was like, this totally different though, they're totally different in my opinion. Clearly. Troy was a great movie too though. But I love the video, I don't know if you guys have seen it, of this round table with a bunch of different executives from different studios, and Toby Emmerich is there, and then other people from like Universal and other studios, right? And one of the questions was, what is one movie that you always regret saying no to? And instantly the executive from Universal, just immediately, as soon as the question was done, he was like 300. And he talked about how, like I said, people are just like, they don't get it. And that's what him and the other executive were like, we didn't get it. And then it came out and they were like, man, we should have done that. And of course, Toby Emmerich was like, oh,
well, we all have our regrets, and
yeah, we all have things we regret saying no to. Like, he was just being a hater. You could tell he hated how much the rest of them were praising Zack and 300, and how it's just become this, pop culture phenomenon. And I'm sure a lot of other studios probably regretted saying no to it too after it came out and saw what it became and what it was and how it was, revolutionary in a lot of ways. Since it would be a prequel series, would it actually be focused on Leonidas before the events of 300? Or would it be like before Leonidas' time? Like, who knows? You know what I mean? I guess it would depend how far back they would be exploring. Plot details are really not known at this time. But I just think it would be wild if Zack returned to Warner Brothers for any reason whatsoever. And if this does happen, if Zack agrees to do this, I hope he does it with terms that are like, I don't want interference. I don't want people trying to make all these dumb, unnecessary changes and dictate this. You know what I mean? Because it's just, they've been there, done that. I mean, it is Warner Brothers Television, so obviously it'd be like a different team of people that he'd be working with compared to like the film side of things. But still, that's the one thing that I think like he would really need to be able to stay true to what Zack would want to do with it. And given the graphic nature of the first movie, obviously Zack does not want to do, that's his thing. He likes to do mature content and mature projects, as far as the platform is concerned. I mean, now with streaming, it's, you kind of you have more room there, I guess, depending on we see a lot of even animated things that are extremely graphic and mature, Invincible, things like that. So I think it'd be interesting that if this happens, it'd be interesting to see which platform picks it up. Maybe that would also kind of influence how much, freedom Zack would have, creative freedom and things of that nature. But like I said, if this is true, there's very, very little known at this point. So I think it'd be very interesting if this ends up happening for lots of reasons, but I definitely wanted to share that. So leave your thoughts below and check out anything you might have missed recently. I do have a new poll running on Twitter and YouTube right now, so feel free to, vote on one or both of those if you're interested in the poll, Wonder Woman versus Supergirl, and who would win. I appreciate all of the support. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and check out the Hive Marketplace link in the description. You can also check out my channel for the short section if you're interested. I appreciate you guys. See you next time.